Welcome to the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. In today's episode, we are diving into the future of restaurant management with Manan Mehta, the co founder of Livelytics. He spent a career in the restaurant space and really was looking to help restaurants to make sure that they could get the data that they needed to make better business decisions. So he and his team built a powered data intelligence tool to help people make better decisions to affect their guests as well as their profitability. Stay tuned in the episode to learn all of the different areas that he continues to invest in to make the best decisions for the restaurants as well as for their guests. If you don't know me, my name is Jeremy Julian. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for CBS Northstar. We wrote the Northstar point of sale solution for multi units. Please check us out at cbsnorthstar.com. And now, on to the episode. Welcome back to the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. As I like to say each and every time, thank you guys for joining. I know you guys have got lots of choices out there in the internet world, and it feels like there's a new podcast every day. So for those dedicated listeners, I appreciate you guys showing up each and every week. Today, I am joined by a very hot topic, and I'm going to let our founder talk a little bit about what they're building, but it's kind of exciting to think about just really how much data we generate in our space and how do we make better business decisions out of it, and how do we not have to, especially as it relates to kind of new tech. We've got a lot of tools out there that are going to help us get to the answers that we need. But Manan, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Let's talk a little bit about kind of your background, and then we can talk a little bit about what you and the team are building.
Sure, absolutely. First off, Jeremy, thanks so much for having me on your podcast, man. Really appreciate it for the invite, and also super excited to be here and talk a little bit more about Livelytics. I've been an entrepreneur for last over 20 to 25 years. I've been in the merchant processing and POS space. So being in the POS space, I've always, sold a lot of POS systems in the restaurant and the retail world. So I know exactly what issues the restaurant owners were having and multi-store operators were having for many, many years. That's when the idea for Livelytics came on board. So along with a very good buddy of mine, who is our co-founder as well, we came up with an idea for Livelytics. So what Livelytics does is a AI-powered data intelligence platform, built specifically for restaurant operators. So what we do is we unify data from all the different POS vendors, from inventory, from labor, from accounting, from marketing, and we turn them into real-time recommendations and insights. So, we've spent close to a year and a half building that platform. So what we have really made is a phenomenal AI-driven powered platform, which actually not only cleans the data, gets the data from all these different multiple, data sources, but it also shows you a very easy, clear dashboard with analytics, recommendations, and anomaly detection.
I love that. And I alluded to it. You obviously saw the problem, which is why you guys went after this. But a lot of places, actually, I do have one real quick thing. We only made it 90 seconds in before we started talking about AI, so I think you got the record for the quickest representation. There's not a show that goes by, but I think it's huge, and we'll talk a lot about it as we go on. But talking about the data sources, the space, and historically before tools like what you had, how are restaurants that are out there listening that don't have tools like you are using, how are they solving for the problems that you guys are able to almost give people these numbers and these analytics at their fingertips? Right now, oftentimes, at least in my experiences, it's 4, 5, 6 different systems. It's a whole bank of data analysts that are doing this. So I'd love for you to kind of talk through why did you see this as such a huge problem? And I guess get into the minds of those listeners out there that are dealing with this problem today before we jump into kind of how you guys are solving it.
Sure. So of course, on the restaurant space, they have the restaurant tech is so incredibly fragmented, all the POS, the labor, the inventory, the accounting, the delivery app integrations these days, loyalty, they all live in the same silos. They all have different silos that they have different data. So operators are literally, logging into 7 different systems and getting different reports from all these different places. And it becomes a nightmare for them to come across and give the right data or right information to their C-level executives. So that's where the idea came into place that, hey, why don't we have a unified system that we bring all the data together and solve that main issue of, having, because they're constantly just reading and going through spreadsheets. They are not making any kind of real decisions that will actually drive more guest engagement, more guests to the thing, reduce operations, none of that. So That is a very big, issue or a problem for a lot of these restaurant operators.
Yep, very much so. And there's something else you talked about in your description of the problem is really the data's there, but there's not actionable pieces there. So I'd love for you to talk through what do you guys philosophically when you guys talk about data analytics and driving towards business decisions. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about both your philosophy and why data in and of itself is not valuable, but data that you can make better business decisions is a huge piece of what it is that you guys are trying to do.
Right. So a lot of people ask us, what's the difference between how does data become intelligent, right? So they have so many
Mhm.
BI tools that they're using. BI is all static, right? So they will show you the charts, and they'll show you KPIs, they'll show you dashboard, but that's after the fact. So, when you actually think about, data intelligence, how that works is we combine AI, we combine predictive modeling, I would say we combine analytics to actually actions. That is where, the power of Livelytics comes into play. So whether, it's adjusting your labor hours or optimizing, menu pricing or identifying, revenue leakages, before it actually becomes a problem. So instead of just analyzing data, operators are spending more time and acting on the insights what we're giving them. So that's basically a key shift for them, right? From dashboard to intelligence. That's the entire philosophy of for us to actually get into this business.
Yep, and I think it's huge. Talk to me a little bit about kind of your, I don't know, say philosophy. Operators are typically, and again, you talked about it in the example, they're typically juggling multiple systems. They don't know where to focus. They're jumping from one fire to another. They've got a different leader. Somebody in operations is talking about labor. Somebody in purchasing and procurement is talking about food costs. Somebody that's in, that's in marketing is like, why didn't you put the POP out and what's going on? And why are we not driving sales of this new chicken sandwich? I'd love for you to talk through how can data help either enlighten the operators to be able to make these better business decisions or allow them to focus on what's important to truly driving. I mean, we are in a very thin margin environment. People don't make a lot of money unless they do it right. And so knowing where to focus your time and energy is really, really critical. And I know you guys are doing a lot to have your tools be able to shine the light on that and make sure that people know, hey, this is where you should be focusing your time and your energy.
Right. So one other thing, the biggest, like even if we talk about it, the biggest misconception of AI that what restaurant owners are coming at, it's going to replace humans. It's actually not. It's going to help them amplify what they are doing. So, operators always think, and they're so intimidated with AI these days. The AI is the big buzzword, right? Everybody wants to talk about AI this and AI that. So, and the day-to-day operations, they're so intimidated that they think like, okay, how am I going to actually get this AI to work for my operations? Or, how do I streamline the operation? Or how do I actually think what's going to happen next, which is the recommendation what we actually provide them and not looking at the past, because all the BI tools are looking at your past historical data and they're giving you, the reports according to what data they're bringing on. So, and that's all in the past. What we are giving them is for the future. It's the recommendation, the anomalies, it's anything and everything. So just think about like a data scientist that's working besides you every day, right? Spotting issues, surfacing
Mhm.
patterns, suggesting what to do next. So, and the second most biggest misconception of AI is you need a massive data science team and months of work to get set up, which is true for a lot of these companies. But again, that's where we bring on Livelytics as a platform. So what we've built is a complete end-to-end solution. So the platform is already baked and ready to go. You can start seeing, results within weeks. And that's exactly what we do. So we partner and we grab data from all these multiple resources, and we have little over 600 plus integrations from different verticals that are already built in. So if you are a restaurant operator, with 100, 200, 500,000 location, it really doesn't matter to us, because if you are connected with one of our integration partners, any POS, back office, like enterprise, customer, restaurant 365, labor like 7 Chips or Toast or Aloha, we already have, active integrations with them. So we can get those data in, clean that data, map that data, which is extremely critical, Obviously, we put that in our data processing platform and our AI and LLM platforms, what we have built over the last year and a half. So we have actually trained our LLM with over 1,000 plus questions. That is restaurant specific questions. So they learn, okay, what actual different, because there are different teams doing different stuff, right? Finances looking at financial numbers, like you mentioned, operations want to look at the ops, marketing want to look at the marketing side of things. So, we guide this through our natural language interface and the role-based dashboard that we have shown for each different departments. So finance will see their cost trends, ops will see their performance metrics, marketing sees their customer engagement, behavior, retention, all these things, so they can use that data and push it to their marketing the marketing software or the loyalty software to give some kind of coupon or some kind of some kind of specials to them, to their customers, to bring those customers back if they've lost that. So again, everything resides on one layer for us. So that is what is very critical and important for a lot of these restaurant owners to understand. And what we have seen with some live accounts that we have seen a phenomenal 90% user adoption across organizations using Livelytics platform on a day-to-day basis, which is absolutely phenomenal.
That's amazing. And that was really where I was going next. This is help me understand, because I've had a lot of people on the show that build fantastic technology. And we say it often, technology for technology's sake is dead, and it's not necessary. It doesn't really do anything. But technology that's ultimately improving business, improving the lives of the operators, improving the lives of the guests is really where I think more and more people like yourself and others that are founders, entrepreneurs need to make sure that the coolest tech doesn't do anything unless it's truly solving real life problems. And so with that, when I counsel with founders or have them on the show, we talk a lot about how do you get adoption at the store level? Because it's woo-woo stuff, and you've got these people that are like, no, this system doesn't know what it's talking about. I know, because I'm there on Tuesdays, and I know what's happening. And I can see you smiling on video because you know that this stuff happens. I love that you gave me the statistic of 90% adoption rate. I'd love to help our listeners understand, why is it that you guys think about it that way to ensure that the operators truly are going to continue to use it and it's going to drive the business value that you guys already are driving at this point?
Sure. So let me give you some real life examples as real accounts that we have. So we have, what I can think of is a couple of multi-brand chains that we are working with. So one of our multi-unit brands, we're seeing a decline in margins, and they couldn't pinpoint, where the margins they were losing. Livelytics anomaly detection flagged one of the patterns. So it actually looked at one of the region had higher food costs tied to ingredient substitution that they weren't logging properly. So a critical thing, if you realistically look at it, people don't think from that angle or that perspective that, hey, why am I losing this? I can't understand why this is happening. And that's exactly what the AI powered analytics will provide you. And it will pinpoint that, hey, your food costs increase because you are substituting, an ingredient which is not logged correctly. Now we showed this, the chain, resolved the issue. They fixed the purchasing process. They retrained the staff. And I think they recovered nearly almost $80,000 in lost revenues in a single quarter. So that's why, it is critical for operators. Like, again, AI is the buzzword. Everybody wants to do it, but nobody understands, how to implement it. And that's where we come in. In another case, very simple thing. So on our labor modeling suggested trimming 2 mid-shift hours per location. That's all we did. So we are not talking about cutting staff. We are just talking about realigning schedules based on the guest traffic. And that saved them over $250,000. I'm talking about $250,000 annually, while improving the guest experience. So just by trimming a couple of hours on a mid-level shift that they would have never done, if our AI model would have not, presented that to them, but just by implementing that, not getting rid of employees, they save over $250,000, which is huge in the restaurant space when you are talking about, a percent here and a percent there in saving labor cost or food costs. If you can save a couple of percent in both these areas, you are saving, millions of dollars.
Yeah, and quite frankly, even in that example, you probably have happier staff because they're not sitting around doing nothing or trying to find work to do when they're in those mid shifts. And so talk to me a little bit about kind of lagging indicators, leading indicators, lots of different brands are struggling. They've been struggling for years to try and figure out one, you nailed it early on, which is kind of there's so many different systems. Where do I go look? What do I trust? How do I know what's going where? But really, I think with AI, we're getting to a point where we can start to see into the future without having to have a team full of, Harvard educated or Stanford educated, data analytics team on the ground. Today's episode is brought to you by Restaurant Technologies Incorporated. They are the leaders in automated cooking oil management. And if you're not familiar with them, they've been on the show a few times to share some of the unique and cool things that they've been doing in the oil management space. They have an end-to-end closed-loop automated system that helps deliver, monitor, filter, collect, and recycle your cooking oil. Sounds like a lot. It's because they do a ton to help clean up one of the dirtiest jobs and most dangerous jobs in your kitchen. You can check them out by visiting rti-inc.com or by calling 888-779-5314. They've already helped over 45,000 customers in the United States with their cooking oil, so clearly they're doing something right. Now back to the episode. You guys are building these models that are truly allowing people to see sales, labor, food costs into the future. So I'd love for you to kind of talk about the shift from lagging indicators. Hey, it happened last month. What am I going to do about it? I don't have an ability to do anything. To where are things going in the future?
Yes, exactly. As you mentioned, lagging indicators tells you what already went wrong, like last week's sales or last month's labor overage. But by the time you see it, it's all history, right? So that's why Livelytics flips that by focusing on leading indicators. So what leading indicators are is trends that predict what's about to happen. So, for example, if weather and foot traffic patterns suggest a 15% drop in sales, and we do have connection with Weather Insights as well. So this is a pretty cool, use case that has come up as well. So with Weather Insights, so let's say if it's going to rain and every time it rains or it snows, your foot traffic goes lower by 15%. So now, we know with Weather Insights in the future, we are looking at, so let's say next Friday, it's going to rain. And with historical patterns, we have seen a 15% drop in sales. Our AI model will indicate or will tell the manager that, hey, it's time to adjust, the staffing. Or for a marketing team that, hey, do some promotions on that day because your sales are going to dip. So that's the main difference. It's like, driving by looking in the rearview mirror versus seeing the road ahead. So that's exactly what Livelytics does.
Yeah. So, talk to me a little bit about the data sources. You talked a little bit about it, but currently we've got back office, we've got a labor management package, we've got point of sale. You talked about external sources like weather. What are kind of some of the key data sources that you guys are pulling in, and how hard is it to get to that data and really roll it up to put it into the model?
Great question. So again, we have integrations with over 100 plus, systems currently. So POS systems, so majority of POS systems, we think about it and we have the integration, the Aloha of the Walls and the NCRs and Toast. We have those accounting softwares. We have with QuickBooks. We have with NetSuite, with Xero. Majority of the chains are using those. Payroll softwares like Seven Shifts, ADP, Paychecks. We have that integration. So these are all direct integration. So we have direct API pulls where you can pull all the data directly from these different silos. Back office major is the Restaurant 365, which is a big competitor, a big solution for recipe management, etc. Market Man is there. So all these different layers along with Weather Insights. So that's big for us. Loyalty plans, delivery app integration like Uber Eats, DoorDash, GrabUp, you name it. We have 70 plus delivery vendors that we can bring in the data. So all these data we are bringing in and we are putting it in one unified layer. So that is what is critical. So for a restaurant chain, they don't need any heavy lifting. They just have to tell us that, hey, what operational systems they're using. Our team will go ahead and manage the connections. Obviously, we'll take the API pulls. We will map the data. And most of the data is already mapped in our platform. So that's why it's very easy for us to just drag and drop and get it ready. That's the reason we call Livelytics as a full end-to-end AI solution provider. So not only we become your data warehouse, but we also help in integrating with all the current APIs and we pull all the data in, but we clean that data, we map it, We put it in our AI LLM models. And the best part is we show you complete visualization as well as in dashboard view where you can see your numbers, with analytics, insight, recommendation, and anomaly detection.
Yeah, that's amazing. And again, I think the fact that it's purpose built specifically for this space is also huge because it gives you the ability to. You're not talking generic. I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and it was talking about the fact that at some point the AI is going to know you better than you know you, and be able to do that. So the fact that you guys are training it based on exactly what's happening within the space is not some generic that's using a model that might be for grocery or retail or
Right.
e-commerce. You guys are using it specific to that type of brand. How much data and how quickly can you get results? Because I've heard, again, you've got to train it and it's got to take all of this data. And I'd love to have you dispel the myth that says once the model is built, it only continues to get better every day, every week, every month, every piece of data that it gets, but it could start delivering results almost immediately. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how much data do you need? How many different systems do you need to connect to really start seeing results?
So typically, we do POCs for a lot of restaurants chain, and usually we get one or two data points. So either they'll give us an operational system like POS and accounting. So we will prefer a minimum of two. So if we can get two data points, we can show them a lot of things, right? Because operational wise, we can show them everything on the operation side of things, and accounting wise, we can show them, your labor costs, your cost of goods sold, your purchasing, variances, anything and everything on the accounting side of things as well, and of course labor. So you can pick and choose what systems would you like to connect with us. But that's our strongest point is most enterprise analytic projects. People think that hey, it's going to take 6 to 9 months, right, at a minimum. Our
Yep.
go-to-market strategy or the POC strategy is under 30 days. So even faster if POS systems and accounting softwares are already in our ecosystem, already connected, it's ready to go. As I explained before, our team already with the LLM, stuff that we already have it trained with over 1,000 questions. So we know exactly, what reports, and we have over 40 to 50 cookie cutter reports that are already built in. So we are not making custom reports for each individual restaurant chain. That being said, we do also do customized reporting for restaurant chains if they like to do that. But again, right off the box, we'll give them 40 reports that will show them everything about the operations, everything about their labor, their customer. We also have a really cool customer sentiment analysis, package that's available too, that we can pull data from all the social media websites, like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google reviews, Yelp. We have over 80 plus, review websites where we pull the data from and we show them the customer sentiment, what the customer is actually talking about your restaurant or your chain. And we can also benchmark that information with different locations within your chain. So one, restaurant location has got 4.8 star review and one is getting a 3.9 star review. Will show you why. What is the customer sentiment? Why this store is doing better than the other one? So that's a pretty cool product that we just launched as well.
Yeah, no, and I love the fact that your go to market, and thank you to some of those older companies that did a lot of this stuff. They trained everybody to think it's 6 to 9 months, but the fact that you guys are able to get somebody up and running in 30 days or thereabouts is pretty amazing. Real quick, before I know we're getting close to time, I'd love to have you talk a little bit about philosophically. There's a lot of things that are kind of canned reports. Every Tuesday, I look at my week over week sales, my month over month sales, and then there's other times that you're like, hey, how did the Thanksgiving special go out last year? And how did we do on it? What were the items that were there? And I'd love for you to talk through kind of the ad hoc versus the kind of canned reports that are on dashboards. You talked about earlier in the show, the fact that you guys have got position specific or area specific kind of dashboards. But I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit about philosophically, how do you guys think about ad hoc reporting? I need to just go get this data about this thing. Hey, the Houston Rockets, you happen to be in Houston. The Houston Rockets, won the NBA championship last year. What happened in and around the stores that are in the Houston market? That might be ad hoc because they're now in the playoffs and what's happening there versus something that says every Tuesday I look at my food cost numbers, I look at my labor numbers. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about kind of how do you guys split those different philosophies out and how do you guys deliver the results on that side?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. To implement, ad hoc reporting, we have added conversational, models, our Gen AI conversational model inside our entire platform. So just think about, ChatGPT, you asking them a question, they are looking at the internet and giving you the right, easy answer. Similarly, that's what we do. But we look at that particular change data only. We don't go across the internet and look for all the different data. When they are asking our Gen AI models, like, hey, why were my sales, down yesterday? Our Gen AI will look at their own data from all the different silos, from all the different systems, and it will give them a very clear and a conversational answer. So that's how, and of course, we have a thumbs up and a thumbs down, a positive and negative feedback loop as well. Because again, these are models that are constantly learning on a daily basis. And literally what the model used to spit out an answer a year back and what it gives right now, it's the night and day, difference. It's absolutely phenomenal. Even we are seeing it on the back end at how much the data, how much the LLMs have learned from the data itself. So again, the natural learning, works itself, but obviously with a really good feedback loop as well. So if an operator doesn't like the answer, you can give a thumbs down and it will actually ask him, why did you not like the answer? So you can give them the recommendation that, hey, next time I need the answer to say one, two, three, four, different specific things. And then the LLM will learn and give them the right answer. So ad hoc is becoming extremely critical. And we are also doing that by user modules as well. So let's say a general manager will get different answer than the C-level executive. So, that's how it's all role based, and the LLMs and the Gen AI, gives them very clear answers about some specific things.
Yeah, one last piece on just I've done a decent amount of my own research. How do you guys put guardrails in to make sure that the AI is not hallucinating and telling them you need to have 42 servers on a Tuesday afternoon because there was some check that got stuck in the system and it was $1 million check for, that we know wasn't real, but it just, there was some bug in the POS data or whatever. I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit about that, because getting people to trust the answers that are coming out of AI, I think is going to continue to be a challenge, because they're going to be like, well, that one time it didn't work, and so I don't ever do that. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you guys think about putting guardrails in place to make sure that the hallucinations and or things that are an anomaly in the data set don't impact the future and some of the decision making that you guys are suggesting.
Yeah, so that's where anomaly detection LLM comes into play. So that we work extremely hard and getting the anomaly working the way it's supposed to work. So anything over, 40%, 50% up or down margins, we showcase that, we pick that. And obviously there are, as you mentioned, there are anomalies. Sometimes the data doesn't sync properly or doesn't come properly. So we do have forecasting and projected models as well that's already built in that will actually show you or tell you that, hey, we did not get the data from this specific source, but projected wise, this would be, your average sale. So if there is anything, that's giving the wrong information, it will automatically flag that. So and we have a team of data scientists that work for us. We are over 50 plus strong development group that, we have data scientists, data engineers, AI engineers that are constantly looking at the data and, cleaning it up and feeding it to the LLMs to give a better answer on a daily basis.
That so last question for you before we wrap up and point everybody to kind of figure out how they learn more. If you're sitting in the C-suite and listening to this show, why is this tool or a lot of other tools that might be out there on the market, why do you think it's so critical for them to be thinking this way? Because in my mind, I look at it and go, you know what? At the end of the day, if you're not, and I say this often on the show, if you're not using a tool like this, your competitor likely is, and they're probably getting the upper hand. So I'd love for you to talk to our C-level executives. Why is a tool like Livelytics really so critical to having a competitive edge in today's economy and in kind of today's market?
No, absolutely. So again, don't look at AI as a buzzword, look at it as a competitive advantage, which is very critical. So if your brand is already sitting on years of POS data and operational data, that's gold mine for you. But only if you can turn it into decisions, that's where it is actually helpful, right? So for leaders, and especially for leaders who love exploring their own business, like who are curious about the why, in the numbers, AI powered intelligent, systems like Livelytics becomes your greatest ally. So again, it's not just data exploration, but I would say it's data acceleration. So that's the key.
Yep, and insights, like you said earlier, just insights to be able to make better business decisions. So for those that are like, they're at 29 minutes, they're like, this is amazing. How do I get my hands on this? How do I attach it? How do they get in touch? How do they learn more? What would it look like to onboard with you guys? You talked about a POC earlier, so I'd love for you to walk through how do they get in touch at first, and kind of what can they expect from you guys?
Yep. Go to our website, livelytics.ai, fill up a contact page, and one of our accounts executives will get back to you. So from that standpoint onwards, we will open up for a POC. So we'll grab all the information. We have a discovery call. So obviously, it's very, very easy setup and easy flow of information. And then it's pretty candid conversation. So we will sit with the CTOs, your CIOs, and we will grab all the data, we'll look at the system, and we'll go from there. So again, go to livelytics.ai and fill up a contact page, and you'll get in touch with us.
I love it. And I agree with you. We shouldn't be scared. I think all of our executives, from the people that are in their 60s and 70s all the way down to in their 20s, they need to be thinking about this because, as you said, it's a huge piece of competitive advantage that you can have once you learn it and you figure out how to make it part of your workflow. It's not going to replace people. It's just going to make you smarter. It's going to enhance what you're already doing. I think it's going to continue to make things better. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for creating this. For listeners, guys, like I said at the onset, I know you guys got lots of choices, so thank you guys for hanging out. Please go check out Livelytics. If you haven't already subscribed to the show, please do so on your favorite podcast player or on YouTube, and make it a great day.
Awesome. Thanks.